Welcome back to the Nuckhead podcast. I hope you guys have all had a good week. It's been tough. It's been tough for us Canucks fans. They have just not been able to find any consistency pretty much all season, and it's frustrating. But more than anything, it's sad. And it's a weird feeling. Like when they lost on Tuesday, 6-1 against the Jets, I was sad after. Genuinely. I mean, Höglander scoring helped me a bit. It made the video a lot easier to make, but it's weird how you cheer for a team, something you have no control over, no stake in as well. I know some people are like, oh, but we pay money for the tickets. Yeah, but you don't have to. It's not like taxes. You're not investing. You just love the team. And it's funny, some people here don't even love Vancouver. You know, they love the Canucks, but in another conversation, they might shit on the city and say they hate the city. And for those of us who have been cheering for the team for 20 plus years, it's not even like the team you love, because the 2025 Canucks, not a single player is the same from 2003 Canucks, for example. So it's just funny, like you cheer for this team. Okay, I had to cut myself off there because this intro is getting way too long. Basically, it's just me today on this episode. I have a few things I want to talk about. One, the NHL is taking down my videos. Okay, that's one thing I want to talk about. The other thing, Canucks can't seem to win. I want to talk about their lack of consistency a little bit. I also asked you guys for hot takes or any questions you have for me, so I'll be responding to all of those. And finally, I'm going to preview tonight's game against the Los Angeles Kings and my thoughts on whether or not Tanner Jeannot deserves a beating or two for injuring Brock Boeser earlier in the season. So, yeah, okay, let's get into it. All right, so first of all, the NHL is taking down my videos. Here's what happened. So on Monday night, I uploaded my first video in quite a while. I took a few days off during the holidays to spend time with family. And during that time, the Canucks played quite a few games. And also, they lost a couple of those games in really boring fashion. So it was a real challenge for me to write an interesting video. But you know, I'm not complaining. I accept that challenge. I enjoy doing it. It just takes a lot of work. So, 3 weeks after my last video, I put together this big 7-game video. I uploaded on Monday night, huge weight off my shoulders. People are in the live chat. They're enjoying the video. Everything's good. But then an hour after I upload it, it gets taken down. The NHL striked it for copyright and deleted it from YouTube. That is absolutely ridiculous behavior. Because here's how it usually works. Let's say I make a video that uses too much of one piece of footage that the NHL doesn't like, right? Let's say it's just a 30-second clip from a live broadcast. They'll flag that, okay? And they'll say, hey, you can't monetize this. You're not allowed to make money from this because you use too much of our content, right? And that's fair. That makes sense. So what happens is the video will stay up, but it'll just be demonetized, or it'll stay monetized, but it'll all go to, all the money will go to the NHL, right? That's how it usually works. And I'm still given an option to just cut out the part that they don't like. So YouTube will say, hey, this part of your video, let's say from 1 minute and 30 seconds to 1 minute and 50 seconds is being flagged for copyright. Now you can keep that part of the video in and just not make any money on it, or you can remove it and make money on it. Right? Everything's fair, makes sense. Well, what happened this time is the NHL didn't even warn me. YouTube didn't even warn me. It just got removed. Okay? Ridiculous. Now, I'm fuming. I'm so mad. I just spent so much time on this. By the way, nothing we do, and when I say we, I mean me, Diener HD, Hockey Psychology, Eck, Next Man Up, Rob Talks Hockey, none of these YouTube channels that cover the NHL are doing anything illegal. Okay? I can't say none of them. But the ones I watch, the ones that are big and I'm familiar with, we're not doing anything illegal. So the point is, I'm pissed, and what I do is well, first of all, I didn't even have the option to keep it up, right? It was just removed. If it was just demonetized, I would have just lived with it, because at that point, I just wanted to put the video behind me. But in terms of the story, I'm trying to cover every single game of the season. I don't want this video to just not exist, missing 7 games. That would annoy me to no end. Like, I'd be so mad looking back thinking people can't watch the season 2 playlist and see all 82 games plus playoffs, hopefully. Anyways, okay. So where was I? So what do? Videos down. It's now like 7 p.m. I'm pissed. People are commenting like, where'd your video go? Someone on Twitter goes, I can't click this link. So I quickly go into editing and they didn't tell me like what part of the video was flagged. Because you know how I mentioned, usually they say, oh, it's this little chunk, right? They didn't say, they just said the entire video, which I know is wrong because, for example, there's parts of the video that don't even feature any of their footage. So it made no sense, right? So I just go back into editing really quick and I do some little tricks to try to fix whatever the issue was. I put parts of the video in black and white. I put text on the screen at points that explains the legal definition of fair use. Because again, what I do is completely legal. And then I re-upload it. Okay. And I do another premiere. People are in the chat saying things like, didn't I just watch this? And I'm like, yeah, whatever. Just sorry, everyone. And I put it up and I just cross my fingers. Okay. I hope it doesn't get removed. Well, guess what? It gets removed again. But this time it does give me a little chunk to remove. Now, I probably would have just let the video stay up demonetized, but they took it down. The only silver lining, though, is I could just click a button and have YouTube remove, I think it was like 15 to 20 seconds of the video, and then they'd put it back up. So I just did that. I gave up. I was like, okay, fine, I'll remove this part. And you know, like, it doesn't really matter, but it bugs me because now if you go back and watch that video, the video is called "The Vancouver Canucks Are in Panic Mode." You'll see that it just kind of skips to a part, like like the story of the video that I spent, again, so much time doing is screwed up now. And again, it doesn't really matter, but it's so frustrating, right? Whatever, okay? Bullet dodged, video stays up, it is monetized too, so like, okay, fine. The views were really damaged. Now, I'm not just saying this, I know that probably will sound like I'm just saying this. I care more about the story than the views. I mean, if one of my videos got 10 views, maybe I'd be annoyed, but like, 14,000 views versus 24,000 views, it doesn't really matter. I get more out of telling the story the way I want to tell it and all that. So whatever, okay? Bullet dodged, whatever, right? But then the next morning I wake up and they took down 2 of my other videos from earlier this year. Now I'm livid. I messaged Diener HD and I'm like, dude, are your videos getting taken down? He's like, yeah, a couple of mine are being taken down. So then I'm like, okay, well, other big creators must be dealing with this. So I go to Hockey Psychology's Instagram. Sure enough, he has a story up with way more videos being taken down than I had. Basically, every YouTuber that covers hockey that I know of, that I follow, was talking about this. And I'm like, great, did I just lose my job for absolutely no reason? Again, I gotta keep saying this. Nothing that we do is illegal. Google what fair use means. Like this is a part of YouTube history where you go back and just search up YouTube fair use legal battles. There's been tons of situations where big companies have tried to stop YouTubers from reviewing their movies badly, reviewing their games badly, or not even badly. Like that's the thing. It's just like they don't want. And here's the thing. Like, what do we do that affects the NHL negatively? Because I would argue all the people making this content, Next Man Up, Hockey Psychology, Pinholes Graham, the Blue Line Hockey, like just the list goes on. It's probably a net positive. I get comments on my videos all the time saying that I've helped reignite their interest in the Canucks or the NHL in general. And I'm a smaller channel compared to some of the guys I'm naming. So I imagine they get way more comments like that. So I'm pissed, I'm mad because like I put a lot of work into this. It's a passion project that turned into a dream job. And I'm just sitting here like, well, what now? Like, is this just going to be the new norm? But then Noah Strang on Twitter, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, tweets out saying, I have been told, I'm not going to say this verbatim, I don't remember exactly how he said it, but basically he was told that, or heard a rumor that this whole thing may have been an error on the NHL's part. It might have just been a big mistake that they're in the middle of correcting. So I hold my breath. Maybe that's what's happening. And I'll just jump to the ending. Sounds like that's what happened because my videos are back up. Some of them are still demonetized, but it's okay. I think that'll be sorted. It looks like everything's fine. I think Ek is back posting. Hockey Psychology is definitely back posting. So it was just like this giant scare on a random Tuesday. But it kind of is worth talking about just because I honestly don't understand why the NHL and I know I'm in a biased position here because I would be affected positively by this, but why wouldn't the NHL or even Sportsnet or TSN or any of these companies embrace what we're doing? Hire some of us. Or could you imagine if, just for Vancouver Canucks games alone, if, they gave some of the Canuck content creators the rights to a couple games to stream on Twitch or on YouTube? Imagine if like Lego Rocks, Diener HD, me, the Blue Line Hockey, streaming a game live on YouTube. Not taking John Shorthouse's job or anything, but just growing the game, getting more people involved. I'm not saying that's something that I would want to do or I think we should do, but how is that not being floated around by some of these people? I don't understand. And I don't actually want to, Sportsnet shouldn't catch any strays here because I think Sportsnet's fantastic. I don't have any problems with them. I know some people don't like their blackouts, but at the end of the day, they've been good to me. I have nothing bad to say. But the NHL, yeah, like why are they flagging these videos? Why are they trying to milk money out of these creators who are doing, if anything, doing their work for free? Again, I'm not going to include myself in this, especially because I just cover the Canucks, but people like Hockey Psychology and Eck are growing the game, are essentially advertising their product free of charge. Yes, they make money. The NHL isn't paying them. Google is, right? So it makes no sense to me. Also, what's so crazy about this is I think it was Rob Talks Hockey. He posted and said, like, this is really scary for me because I have a kid on the way. His wife is pregnant. So like there are people out there who are married, who have kids or have kids coming. You can't just, especially when we're not doing anything illegal. It'd be one thing if we're illegally streaming these games, pirating the content and not even cashing in on it. Even if we weren't making money, like sure, take us down if we're breaking laws, but we're creative people putting in time and effort in telling this story and growing the game that we love, talking about our favorite teams, our favorite players. It's ridiculous. And again, this could have just been an error, but if we see this happen again in the future, if the NHL is in the middle of trying to figure out how to stop all of us from, I don't even know what the end of that sentence would be, stop all of us from growing the game for free, okay, or maybe profiting off the game, if that could be the way they want to spin it. But again, who's that hurting? I know that I'm not entitled to any of this attention or any of these opportunities. I am not, truthfully. I understand that, and I'm not just saying that as something to say, okay? I just love making these videos. I love creating content in general. It's something that I plan to do for the rest of my life, even if it gets hard. It's who I am. It's what I'm good at. And I'm not trying to sound cocky, like I'm not good at many other things. This is just something that I think I'm good at. And more importantly, I have a lot of fun doing. And usually when you have fun doing something, you get good at it because you do it so much, right? And I just enjoy making people laugh and talking about the things I love talking about. And if I can turn that into a career, you bet your ass I'm going to try. So I don't think I'm entitled to any of this attention or any of the opportunities that I was just spitballing, about hiring us or giving us rights. I don't think like that. But I'm just saying from the perspective of the NHL, which I can only imagine, obviously, why would their initial reaction be to shut all of us up? Is there something we're not seeing? Are we taking viewers away from the games? Because in my experience, the only comments I get that sound maybe like I'm taking viewers away from the broadcast are people out in different countries who aren't able to access the game because of blackouts, because of regional restrictions. So they're like the NHL and the companies that they give the rights to broadcast these games to are the reasons why people aren't able to watch the games, not the YouTubers covering them. Anyways, I am rambling at this point, but yeah, honestly, I probably should stop there because at the end of the day, it may have just been a mistake and I don't want to overreact to it any more than I already have. So yeah, I think I'm going to stop there, but hopefully I didn't come across in any negative way to any of you. I want you to understand, I really am so grateful that I'm able to do this. I think it just bothers me being, essentially accused of breaking some law that I'm not breaking. It kind of feels like when you go into a corner store with a hoodie on and you can see everyone watching you, all the employees watching you, like you're going to steal. I've never stolen anything in my life. Like sometimes I'll go into a store with my hoodie on and I'll feel the looks, like I'll see people, when they look down the aisle and I'm like, you're making me want to steal now. Like why? Trust me, please. But at the same time, I understand they're just doing their job, I guess. Yeah, what a rant that was. So yeah, if it's not clear, everything's fine now, but I'm just on alert a little bit because if that were to happen again, and knowing that can happen, man, will Nuckhead ever end? Maybe, but not by the hands of some ridiculous copyright strike that has no legal ground to stand on. Absolutely not. I'd fight that, and I'd keep making videos. I'd find new ways to avoid these detectors, and I would just keep going. I wouldn't let it happen. And at the end of the day, I think YouTube would. I know some people don't think this is true, but I do think YouTube would eventually stick up for the creators. Okay, I got to move on. Okay, I could talk about that for a lot longer, and I really shouldn't, because we have to talk about the Canucks. That's what this podcast is for, after all. Yeah, what's wrong with the Whale team? Why can't they find any consistency? It's absolutely baffling considering how good this team was last season. And yeah, it's frustrating. It really is. There's a lot of ideas floating around in the Canuck world right now. I don't think there's a general consensus as to what the issue is. Some people think it's the coaching. Some people think it's the Pettersson-Miller drama. Some people think it's the actual makeup of the roster that's causing all these issues. My thinking is, I think it's the most obvious one. So I don't know if it's a genius answer, but I would chalk this up to injuries. Last season, if I'm remembering correctly, there was an injury to Joshua in the latter part of the season, and there was a significant, I think, multi-week injury to Susie at one point. But for the most part, none of the main guys were ever injured, at least until the playoffs, obviously, with Demko and Boeser. But that's not the case this season. Every single one of them has sat out at some point this year, and it's crazy. Elias Pettersson, JT Miller, Brock Boeser, Philip Hronik, even Quinn Hughes, Thatcher Demko, obviously. Dakota Joshua too. He's an important player. I think in hindsight, we'll probably look at this season and be like, oh, that's why they struggled, at least up until this point. We don't know what's going to happen moving forward now that everyone appears to be healthy, knock on wood, minus Joshua. But yeah, I think in hindsight, that's what we'll probably say. That's my best guess. Now, the makeup of the roster, yeah, the decor is weaker than last season. And last season, don't kid yourself. The defense we had last season was not amazing, okay? It really wasn't, but it did get worse. A little worse. The third pair is this mix of Joshua, Forbort, Desharnais, Brisebois, Friedman, Brandstrom, you name it. The third pair, and obviously our second pair is not as strong as it should be, but do I consider that the reason the Canucks have failed to find consistency? I don't think so. I really don't. I do think the Canucks could use a top four defender. What team couldn't? But I don't think I would say that's the number one reason. I just think you look at it face value, our stars have not been in the lineup altogether very often this season. I think last game against the Jets, that 6-1 loss, was the first time Pettersson, Miller, Hughes, Hronik, and Demko were all in the lineup together this season. And Demko didn't even get the start, but still, that all five of those guys being healthy for the first time in game 43 should tell you, oh, this team has struggled because of that, right? It must have something to do with that. Now, I know it's never going to be one answer. There's the defense is an issue. I'll acknowledge that. That's absolutely true. And Pettersson and Miller, their struggles, not off the ice necessarily, but on the ice, has been a problem. They've both been very inconsistent. So it's just been a weird year. Now, I'm not ready to write it off, though. And if you watched my video that came out yesterday, you'd know that I have a whole new plan for how we should approach this season as fans. Because clearly, I don't think we can say the Canucks are Stanley Cup contenders. I think at the start of the season, after last year, with the additions they made up front with DeBrusk and Heinen and Sherwood, I think it was safe to say, yeah, the Canucks are Stanley Cup contenders. But now, I don't think in fact, I'm not even saying, I don't know why I'm saying think. We don't get to call ourselves that right now. Playoff contenders, absolutely. Here's my idea, and I'll reiterate it. If you already watched the video yesterday, bear with me because I will say it again. But basically, here's what I think we should do. We need to adjust the way we cheer for this team. The new mission is to just sneak into the playoffs, okay? Sneak in. Wild card team. That's the goal. Obviously, do better if you can, but sneak into the playoffs. That's what we want. Be a sneaky little team, okay? Match up against a juggernaut like the Jets, like the Knights, the Stars, something like that, right? First round, Everyone's saying, oh, 4-0 sweep, 4-0 sweep. But then that's when they click. That's how we're going to do this, okay? It's wishful thinking, and sure, if you're an Oiler fan or a fan of any other team other than the Canucks, you might hear me say that and say copium. However, if you're listening this far into the podcast, I'd argue that I've already won. So, yeah. Anyways, that's my take on the Canucks struggles. I just think it's been a really weird season where no one could really stay healthy, at least the main guys. And because of that, there's been a lot of relying on players. I mean, when Hronik was out, Myers was basically our top pairing D-man, and you know how I feel about Myers. I love the guy. I love that he's a Canuck, okay? I'm glad that he's re-signed. I like when guys have been on the team for a long time, regardless of how they play. I mean, he's not costing us games. Sure, he'll make a bad play and it'll result in the occasional goal, but I just think the presence, and I'm just guessing here, obviously, but I just think the presence he has in the locker room with that team. And also, like, everyone talks about playing in a Vancouver market. Oh, Elias Pettersson can't handle the Vancouver market. Oh, Mitch Marner can't handle the Toronto market. Well, why are we not praising people like Myers? I don't think there's been any player on this Canuck roster, aside from maybe Pettersson, who has been beaten up more than Myers I think he's been here now 7 years. Myers has been beaten up, and yet he decided to stick around. I think you got to keep that guy. I mean, the advice that he could give to players like Pettersson and Lekkerimaki, when Lekkerimaki gets going and maybe slumps one day, is pretty valuable, you know? So anyways, I'm on a tangent now. Point being, I just think this season, you could chalk it up, and I'm not saying it's over. It might sound like I'm saying, oh, it's over. I don't think that at all. I really don't. I would tell you guys if I did. I don't think that. But up until this point, it has been a struggle. And in my opinion, it's because of injuries. Anyways, okay, let's respond to some of your hot takes and some of your questions. Man, again, I'm going to apologize in advance for not being able to pronounce some of these usernames, but at Hjura Archive, Hjaura Archive, very talented artist, by the way, designer. Looking back at the Horvat trade, how do you think the Canucks would be doing right now if they had chosen to keep Horvat over Miller? I don't think any better. I mean, I sometimes think about the fact that the Canucks had Miller, Pettersson, and Horvat down the middle at one point, and that's wild to think about. As for like how they'd be performing now if they had kept Horvat over Miller, I don't know. I mean, I think Miller is a bigger difference. Well, no, I know Miller is a bigger difference maker. So, you know, I don't know if having Horvat, we would have won as many games as we did last season, to be honest. No, I think they made the right choice. I think Miller's the better player. Absolutely. Okay. Canuck Girl 43 said, hot take, Canucks will advance to at least the Western Conference Finals this year. Everyone is now healthy-ish, just need time to rejuvenate the line chemistry and they're ready. Yeah, I mean, look, that is a hot take. It's actually an incredibly hot take. I think if you said that at the start of the season, people would say, well, yeah, I could see that happening. Now, I think majority of the NHL community, the hockey community, would laugh at that. And I think that's where we shine as Canucks fans. I mean, that is the motivation for what started my YouTube channel in the first place, was me thinking the Canucks were going to do well last year and hearing everyone say why they weren't. So I was like, all right, I'm going to explain why they are. And luckily I got right. But this year, not so much, at least not yet. So yeah, I mean, I agree. I think this is the thing, like anything can happen once you get into the playoffs. We've seen that so many times over the years. So if the Canucks can squeak in, and I'm saying if, because they have gotten themselves into that situation where they are fighting for a playoff spot now. And, you know, there's still half the season to go. So they can, you know, they have time to smarten up. But if nothing changes and they keep going win-loss, 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 yeah, they'll be fighting for a playoff spot. So yeah, it's a hot take, but could I see it happening? Absolutely. I mean, the Canucks are so good. They have so much talent on that team. They just need to figure out how to play together. Now that they're all healthy, assuming it stays that way, aside from Joshua, who's still injured, yeah, I think they could do damage. I really do. If they can get into the playoffs, I think they can. So I agree. It's a hot take, and I totally agree with it. At Rachie BB, aka Rachel, said, Petey and Millsy's drama has been blown way out of proportion. They're simply not friends, just coworkers. Yeah, I don't know. I made a podcast episode about this maybe a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago. I can't remember. But I was basically saying like, oh, all of this is nonsense. But Since then, I actually have changed my mind. More stories have come out, and I actually do think there's a rift between the two. I think it's so obvious now that even saying I think is probably silly. There is clearly a rift between the two. But do I think the media needs to act like paparazzi and, leak information and try to get as much out of it as possible? No. It's a weird situation because I know that's their job. And, at times I've even struggled with the thought of, if I talk about this, my video might get more attention or get more views. And so I understand, especially when these people who work in the media are feeding their kids or feeding their families with the money they make doing this, that a juicy story, how do you not tell that story? But at the same time, these are human beings. And if you're covering a team that you also cheer for, posting a story like that, and I'm not calling out anyone specifically, I've talked about it. I'm part of this now. Posting that story publicly on YouTube or on your website or on Twitter, whatever, could also hurt the team you cheer for. It's a weird situation. So I think it was blown out of proportion, but I sympathize with the people who need to cover the story. I don't know. I think it's a situation where we don't know what's going on. And again, these are just two people. It's just such a strange concept to be okay, these two guys aren't getting along. We don't know the whole story. They're not telling us the whole story, but let's try to figure it out. And while we're doing it, give our opinions. It's messy. It's so messy. I think that's something that will clear itself up with hindsight. Not that we'll get the full story ever. I mean, maybe we will, but I think just with hindsight, we'll probably be able to point the finger at what went wrong in terms of how it was being reported or how it was handled. It's just part of society learning and growing. I mean, it wasn't too long ago that we were bullying Britney Spears to the point of her going insane, essentially. That was 20 years ago. I remember that as a kid. Or making fun of a 13-year-old Justin Bieber, calling him god-awful names, bullying him on a massive scale. People still do it. But for the most part, I think society's learned hey, these are people too, regardless of how much money they have, regardless of how famous they are. We should probably treat them like that. So I do think in hindsight, we'll figure out where we went wrong. And I'm saying we, in the media talking about this, and also where the PR team on the Canucks side, what they could have done differently. Because it has been mishandled, misreported, and overblown in general. But I do think there's probably something going on. It's just a question of whether we should know, whether we do know. Anyways, again, rambling. Today's a ramble session. Okay. At Rimjutherford69 said, breaking down what Brock Boeser's future is he worth locking up long-term 6 to 8 years for $7.5 million for a second-line right winger who gets roughly 18 minutes of ice time per night, who lacks foot speed? But if you're trading him, what should the team target in return? Okay, I read it weird, or maybe you wrote it weird. I don't know. One of us is weird. Or both. But basically, Rimjutherford69, aka Jake, is saying, is it worth re-signing Brock Boeser? Again, if you remember a few minutes ago, I spoke about why I love Tyler Myers. I think we should try to keep Brock Boeser for the same reasons. I mean, not the same reasons. Obviously, Boeser's a far better player than Myers, and he scores a ton of goals. But that invaluable locker room presence of just being here through a bunch of different coaches, multiple GMs, different eras. He's seen what it was like in the playoffs. He's seen what it's like when they were a lottery pick team, I just think that's good to have. I really do. He's been through it here, and I don't know. I'm open to either. If it was my choice, I would try to make it work keeping him here. At Big Hog Hockey said, Big Hog is the best player on the Canucks, if not the NHL. If you disagree with me, I will find you, JK, but seriously, he's the best player. I'm not going to comment on that just because for branding purposes, I'm just going to agree with you. Okay, Tatiana said, which call-ups do you think are here for the long haul, and who would be your next choice to call up? One forward and one D. Okay, well, for defenders, I would love to see either Elias Pettersson or Kirill Kudryavtsev. They're going to be good. I really believe that. Now, am I psychic? No. I could be very wrong. I've been wrong before. But yeah, I'd like to see those guys get called up. I'll pick Elias Pettersson just because I think it'd be funny. But either one of those guys would be cool. And then for forwards, well, honestly, all the guys that I wanted to see get some NHL time so far this season have been called up. Arshdeep Bains, Max Sasson, Atu Ratu, and obviously Jonathan Lekremaki. I don't even know, I don't know who else I would want to see get called up. Maybe if the Canucks found themselves out of a playoff position in a significant way, it could be cool to just see what players like Danila Klimovich have, because he's kind of getting to that age where decisions are going to have to be made about how we view him as a prospect. So it would be cool just to see if maybe he can excel at the NHL level. I know he's got a fantastic shot. Okay, 8R3N said Brock Boeser could be traded for a top 4 D-man at the deadline. I don't think we can pay him more than what JT Miller is making. I love the guy, but he might be the first domino to fall. Look, if it became a question of whether we can keep Miller or Boeser, I honestly think you got to go with Boeser. I know that sounds insane because Miller's so good. He's a center. But if it's true that Miller and Pettersson aren't getting along and you got to trade one of them, unfortunately, you got to trade the guy who's 5 years older. I feel like people are going to give me shit for that. But anyway. Matthew Bailey said, trade Miller. Oh, come on. Okay. This is the last trade one I'm going to entertain. Matthew Bailey said, trade Miller or Petey for Bedard. That's a tongue twister. Trade Miller or Petey for Bedard. Wise idea or foolish? Is it feasible? Would it make for a better team in the long run? Miller's lost the respect of the room, and it seems like Petey was only in it for the contract. Bedard will play with heart, even if he needs to develop more. Okay, I'm going to say, first of all, Bedard's not going anywhere. Chicago won't do that. Second of all, I don't think Miller has lost the respect of the room, and I don't think Petey is only in it for the contract. I don't think either of those things are true. But I'll just entertain the question, would Bedard help this team right now? I don't know. Sorry. Yeah, so the Canucks play the Los Angeles Kings tonight, and it's a pretty big game because, well, I think it's a must win. I don't think after that road trip you can come back, especially now that everyone's healthy, minus Joshua. I don't think you can come back from that road trip and lose on home ice. And the Kings are a good team. It's going to be a hard-fought game, but yeah, I really think they need to win. And then the other reason why this is a very, very big, important game is because Tanner Jeannot's back. The guy who injured Brock Boeser took him out with an incredibly illegal, dirty hit. He was suspended for it, but only, I think it was 3 games maybe, and Boeser was out for 6, plus I think maybe the 6 or 7 you could argue that took him to kind of get back to normal. Yeah, at least 10 games of Brock Boeser's season was ruined because of this idiot Tanner Jeannot. Now, I'm not talking about the guy. I don't know the guy. I'm sure he's a great person. He's probably got great friends. He's probably a great son, maybe even a great brother. But yeah, on the ice, fuck that guy. I hope he gets hit really hard. And the person I think who's going to do it is actually JT Miller. I know a lot of people are saying Tyler Myers or Kiefer Sherwood. I think JT Miller is going to be the first one to challenge him to a fight. And here's why. People have been saying Miller's given up on the room. He's given up on the team. And I don't know if how much these players stay off of social media. I know they probably all try to. Miller seems like very much the type of guy to stay off social media. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if some of that got back to him, if he heard that people were saying that. And I think tonight would be a great opportunity for him to just say fuck you to all the people who said that he gave up on the team by sticking up for Boeser, fighting Jeannot, probably within the first 10 minutes of the game. Honestly, that's my prediction. That's what I think it's going to be, but maybe someone else will beat him to the punch, pun intended. We'll see. As for predictions, I say, I don't know, 3-1. Big news though, okay? Here's the big news. Lekkerimäki is finally playing on a line with Pettersson. At least that was the lineup in the morning skate reported by Jeff Patterson. So if that stays the same, oh my God, I'm happy. That's all I want. Pettersson and Lekkerimäki, just force them into being a dynamic duo, please. That would be amazing. Could you imagine, we talked about how the Canucks season's been so inconsistent so far, but this might be the time when they can just really ramp it up? Because is there a better time to get hot than just before the playoffs? Well, okay, we're not just before the playoffs, but you know what I mean. Probably not. So yeah, if we can get a lineup going where we got Pettersson and Lekkerimäki on the first line scoring goals, wreaking havoc, and then on the second line you got Miller and Boeser, and then on the third line, once he's healthy, Joshua and Garland? What? Come on, and then you throw in DeBrusk, Hoglander, Bluger, Sherwood. Hey, the forwards are not the issue at all. Defense, though, I don't know. I mean, the morning skate lines have Forbort and Myers as the second pair defenseman, and it's very obvious the Canucks could use a top 4 defender as soon as possible. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna go. Thanks for listening, guys. Bye.